Hi everyone, I'm Richard at Sunshine Renewable Energy. Can someone just let me know if they can hear me on the bottom there? Hi, how's it going? So I'm kind of here tonight to kind of give you a kind of quick overview of heat pump technology and a few other little bits and pieces that kind of tie into that. There's a bunch of different ways that heat pumps can operate. So we're kind of go over kind of like the basics and whatnot. So really dive right into it here. The first thing that we're going to talk about, the thing that you see the most of around here, are the mini split heat pumps. So the mini split heat pump is an indoor evaporator / this is a small air handler, and then an outdoor compressor. I can show you quickly over here. The compressors are just over here and in the corner over there. So the outdoor unit actually runs the indoor unit. So basically what the benefits of a heat pump really is that it doesn't actually generate any heat like a furnace or electric baseboards would do. This is actually kind of like a thief. They actually take energy and transfer it somewhere else efficiently and effectively. With that, you're getting, typically a much more consistent, even heat. The air conditioning in the summertime, because it does the exact reverse in the summertime, where it'll actually take that energy from the house and then shift it back outside. And dehumidification is a byproduct of air conditioning. So this is like our number one thing that we sell because it is the most applicable in our retrofit situations. Typical applications for this is anybody who has electric baseboards, hot water baseboards, whether that be electric boiler or oil boiler or propane boiler or natural gas boiler, any of those scenarios, this is typically the retrofit for that. The reason being is because if you don't have the ductwork, which is, this is a ducted heat pump here. If you don't have the ductwork, it's very hard to retrofit for most houses. There is an application, which I'm going to show you in a minute, which does incorporate these kind of, but this is kind of like your main floor, your basement, perfect for that. Split entry houses, raised bungalows, side splits, your main floor and your basement, these go great in for sure. A typical efficiency out of a heat pump, like a good heat pump, you're talking 300% over electric baseboards. So 300% efficiency, and then versus oil per BTU, still the same. Maybe even 350 or 400 even for that matter, because it's typically a little bit less efficient. Oil and natural gas, propane, but nonetheless, very, very good source for heating for those applications. Then you have like your ducted system, right? The ducted system is if you have the existing ductwork, or if you're building new, it's often considered to be put into the house where you're building all that infrastructure right at the gate. Very difficult to retrofit, but awesome because depending on the layout of your house, if you have like 2 stories and it's bedroom upstairs, if you can put these in the ductwork in those scenarios, it works a lot better because you have a vent in every room versus like if you put up these upstairs. These don't do so great upstairs in a 2-story house because you're putting that in a bedroom. It's only going to do the bedroom. It doesn't kind of move through the door out into the hall, turn the corner, and go into the next bedroom. They really don't work that way. They're more for that open kind of where it kind of really blows out and fills that whole space with a pressurized heat. So the ductwork, great for bedrooms, bang, bang, bang into the bedrooms. You can shut the doors and all that kind of stuff. These upstairs in bedrooms, not a huge fan, right? So when it comes to the upstairs bedrooms, this is kind of leading us into this type of heat pump. So this is what we call an attic ducted system. It's not been sold a ton around here, except for a couple of us over the last few years really started, picking up on this. So this is what our typical solution is for an upstairs floor of a 2-story house, right? Where you've got bedroom, 3, 4, or even 5 or 6 bedrooms on the top floor, depending on the size of the house. Typically 3 and 4 is what we see. And this is a Ford system. This is probably our #1 system that we sell. So essentially what this is the same thing as this, right? The same technology as the head, just in a little bit of a different format, where the air handler will actually come out into a plenum kit, which is on the end where you have your 3, 4 leads coming off of, right? All of this stuff is insulated, so you're going to get the best effective efficiency out of it as you can. And then you have your ductwork, and that ductwork, if it's coming off of a long run, we'll use rigid pipe. It's insulated R10. You can also bury that in the insulation if you're ever doing the attic insulation and stuff like that. And it comes out to the leads. Right, so there's a lead right there. There's another lead right there. There's another lead right there. And these could all be bedrooms, right? All of these also have butterfly dampers. And then they all come back to a return. So this is the return right here. That's sucking it into the machine, across, through the vents, down, and then back to the return. And it keeps on going in and out through. It's not actually exchanging anything from the attic. It's literally the air in the space going through the machine back into the space again. And that's why we insulate best we can. The reason that we really push these a lot harder now is because, especially 2 stories, we've put in a bedroom, again, spending a lot of money to get 1 bedroom, right? 100% of the time it's oversized. Nobody's bedroom is big enough, really. Unless it's a really big house, to accommodate a 7,000 BTU. I think 6,000 BTU is the lowest that I've really heard of indoor heads. But bedrooms, they need 2, 1.5, maybe 3,000 BTUs. So when you're starting off at 6 or 7, you're at least double the size. They come on, they shut off. They come on, they shut off. They don't really produce the amount that they would. Whereas if you have it on the main floor, if you have something that's properly sized for the space that you're looking to get, it runs all of the time. So that's kind of leads into another thing as to the heat pump and the efficiency of the heat pump and the sizing of the heat pump and things like that. Because really, the best way a heat pump can run is if it's kind of running in that kind of slow, steady pace. It's not like the furnace or the boiler or the electric baseboard. Those get really, really hot, right? So you touch them, they're really, really hot. Baseboards are hot water baseboards are 180 degree water, so it's super, super hot. These only just kind of like a slow burn, right? They can't jam out all kinds of heat all at once. What they do is they produce. They kind of get to that sweet spot, and then they slow down. And the compressor is an inverter, so what it does is it comes down to the lowest draw. And then maintains the space, and that's what you often hear that I got the heat pump and the air conditioning. Everybody talks about that, but the heating is awesome because it's very consistent, right? It fills the whole space as long as you have the open plan, and it's just a more full heat, more regular. So a couple of the other things with the mini splits as well. There are a few different variations. this actually you can't really see that very well. There is a 4-1. The #1 thing that I hear from people is I hate the look of this thing. Yeah, well, it is what it is as far as those goes. They do have these. These work really good too. I highly recommend those if you really can't stand the look of those. But those are the market leading technology. This is the most efficient. You sacrifice a little bit of efficiency when you go for this, and a little bit of effectiveness, but they work. For something like that, they work really good. They work better than most heat pumps, actually. So a little bit about kind of the head. Back onto the heads again here. Inside, let's look at this here. Inside, you have that coil, right? So there's 2 filters there. You have to clean these regularly, right? You take them out, you rinse them off in the sink, dry them off, put them back in. Every house is different. Could be 30, 60, 90 days. but you definitely want to keep those clean because that's the airflow that's going to be coming over your indoor coil. This is your indoor coil right here. Essentially, this is the inside of a heat pump for the indoor unit. That is your coil. This is where your heat transfer and your cool transfer occurs. So in the wintertime, this coil is getting warm. The air is blowing through the coil and out into the room. And then in the summertime, this is getting cool and the air blows through that. But when the air blows through that, because the temperature differential on the coil is cooler than the air going through, what will happen is the water will condense on the coil and then drip down and then out the house somehow. We always find a way. There's lots of different ways that it can be done though. Draining can be, historically outside walls for these. These in basements or mechanical rooms, they typically drain into a condensate pump, and then that pump pumps back out the house. And then another thing with the mini splits, I get it all the time. If you're buying a mini split, like the main floor is like the key. It's the meat and potatoes of the house. It's really, that core. So on a split entry house, it's the top level with all the exposed doors and windows and walls that are getting, all the cold and everything coming in. If you're doing these in a single zone, you're going to get so much more out of it. So the main floor of any house, split entry to two-story, main floor, always I say single zone. So if you're in a split entry, really you're looking at two separate heat pumps. One up, one down if you're doing both floors. Or you could do one now and one later. But really do it this way, in my opinion. That main floor one, this is in my opinion, this is 30 to 40% more effective than what they call the multi-zone. And that's when you have one outdoor unit compressor and multiple heads, right? So you could have, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, depending on, if you get into commercial applications. But you can have multiple heads on one compressor. The problem with that is once you've divided that energy, you degrade your efficiency, you degrade your output at colder temperatures, you degrade your COPs, all of these things, the coefficient of performance, which is really like your multiplier as to efficiency. It really degrades it. So, residentially, at least the main floor. When you're in a two-story, if you're doing upstairs, I always say go back to this ducted system to get multiple bedrooms. But if you are putting one in an upstairs bedroom, I still say do the main floor one. And even more so in the two-story house, because the two-story house, you have that open staircase that goes upstairs. You heat it with the most effective thing. That heat goes up the stairs, and you're basically heating both floors from one unit. So your upstairs doesn't really matter that much as far as heat goes, only on the colder days that you would really need an extra boost of heat from that. So to keep that main floor one, the single zone, you're gonna love it way better. It's gonna perform better. It's gonna save you more money. It's gonna break down less. The other thing is that you're diversifying your investment as well. So if one lasts 15 years and the other one lasts 25, you're only replacing one at 15 rather than both. And then, I'll talk a little bit about machines. Machines are, vastly different as far as quality goes. We do Fujitsu and we do LG. Fujitsu's our number one seller for sure. Comes with the best warranty, 12 years parts, 10 years labor. But there's other good machines out there too, like Daikin, Mitsubishi. Those guys are all the market leaders, the benchmarks when it comes to this stuff. And they also come with the best warranty and the best backup and stuff like that. The thing that I try and tell people about a bit is moving in a little bit closer here. Just kind of got a couple of examples here of the difference between kind of like I could buy these for like $800, right? I could sell them for $2,500 or maybe $2,700. right? But when you come over to the Fujitsu over here, right, and you can see, like, you can just see the difference. I have to sell this. This is $4,500. There's nothing I can do about it, right? I pay more than 2 times for one of these as I do for one of the other, actually 2.5 times. So everybody talks about that $2,500 heat pump. Well, this is it, right? Some people are paying $3,500 for that heat pump because they're saying that it's as good as this. It's just not, right? It's just not. I'm sorry. Nobody can convince me otherwise. They're just, the good heat pumps are, you can just see everything about it, from the coil to the everything. Anyways, the warranties, big warranty. Look up warranty. That's, one of your big indicators. So a quick little go over about electricity and heat pumps, right? So electricity, heat pumps need electricity. Heat pumps run from a 12,000 BTU and a 9,000 BTU. They take a 2-pole 15 amp circuit, right? So we need 2 spots, often in panels. Like if you've got the glass fuses still, often we can still get 1, but usually these are flaked out. If you have a glass fuse panel in your house, it's time, right? They're more than 30 years old. It's just old infrastructure. But we can't often get in here. If you heat with oil and you're going to keep oil, you can fit in a few heat pumps. You still have enough power. What you can't do is come off of oil on 100 amps, right? So this is a 100 amp panel, this is a 200 amp panel. If you want to come off of oil, you're 99.9% of the time you're coming over to a 200 amp service. And the reason is we can get the heat pumps in here, but if you remove the oil, you have to replace your primary heat source, which was oil. And 99% of the time we do that with electric. That electric is going to make you have to jump to that 200 amp service upgrade. All right. It's a, $3,500 to $4,500 option that you have to, at some point, swallow up if you're going to come off of oil, or go on propane. You could do that. So that is possible. We do sometimes see that. But at the end of the day, if you don't do that 200 amp service at some point, it's inevitable, because if you're going to get into electric cars and stuff like that, you're going to need it anyways, because you can't do heat pumps and electric cars on a 100 amp service. So a lot of that is going to become shaken out over the next decade or whatever. The other thing that we get a lot of questions about, generator panels. Generators, they come in 2 different ways, really. That's like your automatic standby generator. Put one of these things in, run your whole house. By the time all the dust settles, you're $15,000 to $18,000. All right. The one that we do a lot of is this. This is just a straight up generator panel. So essentially, what we do is we isolate your electric panel from the grid, so that if the power goes out, you can put power to that panel without sending power through to the grid. It all has to be done through Nova Scotia Power. We have to get a permit and everything like that. But you can do a lot of stuff with that. And it's just basically a plug on the outside of your house. You plug it into your generator, fire the generator, and it powers everything that we put into that panel. It could be a small heat pump, fridge, fridge, deep freeze, internet, kitchen plug, bathroom lights, kind of like your essential stuff. Quickly touch base on a couple of things here as well. ETS units, we do a lot of ETS units. It's called electric thermal storage. I don't know if any of you have heard about Nova Scotia Power's time of day meter, but effectively you have to have one of these in order to get on it. The time of day meter is Monday to Friday from 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. Friday from 11 p.m. until Monday morning at 7 a.m. All your national and provincial holidays. They charge you half price electricity for the whole house. So everything that's going on in the house at those times is at basically half the rate. It's a little bit above half the rate, but it's basically half the rate. So effectively, this is designed to take a charge at night, hold the heat, give off the heat throughout the day, and then recharge again the following night. Excuse me 1 second. So benefits of that is, it's effectively 2 to 1, half price electricity, give you your heat. But what it also can do is it affect other things in the house. So we put a timer on the hot water tank, so your hot water tank charges at night. Your dishwasher actually has that 2, 4, 6 hour delay on it already if you bought it in the last 10 years. Your dryer, if you run that on the weekends, all of your clothes drying is half price. Washing, whether you use hot or cold, it makes a difference. But then also come back to this electric car thing, right? At some point, this is happening, right? We are going to be on electric cars. Imagine when you come home at night and you plug your car in and you're paying 50 cents on the dollar to charge up your car for the following day's work. I mean, that's pretty good. It's like walking into the gas station with 50-cent off card, right? It's pretty cool. I think you'll see a lot more of that coming down the road. So kind of a little brief outdoor unit. So all heat pumps have a compressor. We have different compressors here. These are kind of like the mini split compressors, right? When you get into one of those multi-zones where you've got multiple heads coming off, it gets into bigger, more like this. And then you kind of have your traditional ducted heat pump. This is the ducted heat pump where you have the big air handler. It goes through the ductwork, through the house, and all of that, right? That's your big coil down the bottom. Does the heating and the cooling. So this is kind of like the traditional one. It's been all around for eons. We've installed 1,000 of these things. But this is the way it's going next, right? These are your new ducted systems, right? So if you just came out with theirs this year, LG also has one, but this is the new system. They've gotten so much better. The ducted systems, they're getting, into the realm of the mini splits, which are the most efficient. These are, and the other thing about the mini split is that you get multiple zones out of it. Whereas a ducted system, the whole house is one zone. But anyway, so this is the inverter technology that is now in the ducted systems. These things they can do, they don't really need backup heat anymore in these, although you do, and not necessarily for the reasons that I don't think people think about. It's not because of how cold it gets outside anymore. These things can do it all the time, right? The problem with the heat pump and needing a backup heat is if this breaks down, I'm not fixing it today. It's not getting fixed today. I can guarantee it, even in the perfect of circumstances. If I could make it out today, which rarely occurs, I have to come out and I have to find out what the problem is. I mean, as you can see, this is not your typical furnace. This is a sophisticated machine. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know how to diagnose. And, you kind of also become superstar, at your product, right? Just like with us, we don't sell the Mitsubishi or the Daikin because we are Fujitsu, right? We're professionals at the Fujitsu. Those other ones, again, are good brands. But we're not, this is our bread and butter. This is the one that, they call us sometimes if there's a problem because we know it better than most. So, really, it's just not getting fixed today, right? It could be a week. If it happens, the two peak times of the year for us here is we have our average service where we kind of, a couple guys doing, 5 or 6 appointments a day doing service, right? And rolling out. And then the first cold snap hits. That goes up to 10 times what it was the day before. I can't get out to everybody all at once. It's just impossible. I mean, you have to know. You can't just send anybody out to it. So we put those people on priority. Do you have heat? Is it just a noise and blah blah blah? And then we work our way through it. But again, if this is down for a week or 2 weeks, right? You need something else, right? You need another heat. You can't, and it's not a wood stove. It's not a pellet stove. Those are also not primary heats. They have to physically be manned in order to operate. You need that thing where if you're out during the day and that breaks down, you got to know it's something that is going to kick in to make sure that your house doesn't freeze. All right. A little bit of hot water, right? So hot water is, it's one of the biggest expenditures of energy in your home, depending on how many people live in it, of course. But heat pump hot water tank, we sold a lot of these over the last few years. They're pretty cool. They run, again, a third or a quarter of the cost of running like a regular electric hot water tank. They use the heat pump technology in here. It heats the water. They work amazing. It's a much more complicated install. This one's hooked up to actually a bottle of water, so you can see that when we're actually heating our water here for the little that we actually use in the office, that water that's coming through here is condensing. We have to get that water somewhere. So you got to have a drain nearby, or a laundry tub, or we have to put a condensate pump in, just like a ducted heat pump, and pump it somewhere where we can get the water out. Another one that we do a lot of is the Green Marathon tank. This is like a Buzz Lightyear spaceship. So that's a polyethylene with a titanium coating on the inside. It has R20 insulation. I mean, it's like that thick. And it comes with a lifetime warranty. I have actually had one of these in my house. Dorian last year. We didn't shower, but after 6 days, we could still wash dishes and wash our hands with warm water, which was like, it was impressive for me. That was a long time with no power. And still had kind of like the basic hot water 6 days later with 4 of us living in the house. So I'm going to kind of open the floor to questions here. I'm sure I haven't. So does living in a semi-detached home limit where you can have the mini split? I mean, sometimes, for sure, yeah. I mean, there are some layouts that we run into some challenges where we can't get the perfect solution, but it's pretty rare. Most of the times we can find at least a spot for one, and then it also depends on what you currently heat with as well. So if the ceilings are finished between the second and third level, but not finished between the basement and first level, you could technically do a ducted, but you would probably separate that, where you would have like a ducted system. It's easy to do that ductwork in the basement between the main floor and the basement, but it's hard to get upstairs with it. So we would probably look at doing one of these upstairs and then duct the main floor in the basement, which is actually kind of not a bad idea. You really get a better control over things anyways. I think the attic heat pumps. The attic heat pumps for service, servicing is a good question. So really, you don't do anything to this, right? We set up everything all so that you can do it from here, right? So this is your return grill right here. And basically, you drop this hatch down, you pull the filter out, you slide the new filter in, which we give you 4 of. You change them throughout the year every quarter. And then every year you want us to come out and check this thing over, just to make sure that it's operating properly. We always want to be making sure that we check the drain line every year. It is in your attic. And another thing that I get a lot about this is, you got it in your attic, blah, blah, blah. If it's properly installed, it's not really a problem. I mean, can something happen? Absolutely. But I'll tell you what, something can happen with those too, because some of the most damage I've ever seen in people's houses is a result of these ones, right? Drains going right into the wall. It goes down the wall, it comes across the basement floor. Guess what? If this thing starts leaking, you're going to know within an hour or two, because it's going to start dripping right through the ceiling above. So, it's arguable as far as that goes. All of these are producing water inside the house, right? All of them. Doesn't matter what one you're talking about. Every heat pump will produce water inside the house. So there's anything that can happen. We've seen in these ones, Spiders crawl up the drain line outside and lay a nest. The water comes out, fills up, goes up, back into the house. There you go. It happens. It's part of making water in homes. So pretty simple. And then again, we want to check it every year to really make sure that everything's working properly. Another thing that I get a lot: can you control the temperature in every room? Not control, but you can fix the dampers. So there's a butterfly damper inside that, and essentially what it does is as you twist it, that will open like this, and it will restrict the airflow. So you can, like, if you got the master bedroom, it's bigger than the kids' room. You're going to dump more air into the master bedroom than you will into the kids' room because they don't need as much. So it's balancing the system. So you can tweak that a little bit. I have older wiring. So older wiring, I mean, it depends. I mean, anything to do in order to get there. But we do free consultations. It doesn't cost anything to do. Generator panel is anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000. Typically a 30 amp panel, which is like basics, right? It's the essentials. It's a kettle. It's your fridge. It's your deep freeze. It's your internet. A couple of lights. Done. If you're going to a 60, now you can throw a little bit more in, right? You can put in a microwave. You can put in a heat pump, small heat pump. But then when you get to the big ones over, like the Generacs there, they get, those are, that one there's 100 amp one right there. That'll do a whole house. So how much voltage is required to have a heat pump? It's not voltage, it's ampage actually. With depending on the size, you could be, starting at a 2-pole 15 amp, then you're going up to a 20, a 30, 40, depending on the size of the heat pump. Typically, between 2-pole 15 and 2-pole 30 is where you're kind of mainly as far as one heat pump. So if you have a forced air furnace and 100 amps, right? You've got two options, right? It's a good question. So this kind of older duct, it's not older, I mean, we still sell these. This kind of technology is what you would be looking at to what they call an add-on, right? So essentially what we're doing is we're taking this heat pump and it's going to be connected to a coil similar to this big coil right here, the giant coil, right? We would actually insert that into your furnace, right? And then the heat pump does the heating and the cooling for the house. And then the furnace would be the backup for the heat pump. That you can do in 100 amps as long as you don't have a hot tub or heat a swimming pool almost all the time, right? But this is kind of it's at the end of the add-on life cycle. Now most people are going towards a service upgrade coming off of oil. I mean, if your furnace is more than 15 years old, don't waste your money and put an add-on into it, right? It's just, you're gonna have to replace your furnace in 10 years. And by then I'm not gonna be able to match up the outdoor unit to the indoor unit. You just wasted your money. You're guaranteed a 10-year lifespan of your product. It's kind of better to kind of do the whole thing all at once, in my opinion anyways, but to each their own. Kind of rough costs when it comes to something like this. If you're adding into a furnace, you're somewhere around 10 grand, right? And you're keeping the 100 amps, right? If you're coming off of oil, it does get bigger, but you're doing a lot. So coming off of oil means you're doing the 200 amp service upgrade, right? That's, $3,500 to $4,500 plus. You're getting rid of the oil, so we take care of we take the oil away, we take the tank away, we put a hot water tank in if the hot water is oil, we change that over to electric, and then your heat pump. Usually looking somewhere between $17,000 and $20,000 typically, depending on the quality of heat pump that you're going to go for. If you're going for the top of the line with the Fujitsu, you're probably going to be somewhere around 20. If you're kind of going with an more entry level heat pump, 17, might get it down to 16 at the lowest. But then if you don't have the service upgrade to do, I mean, again, you're dropping $3,500 to $4,500. But most of the time, if you're on oil, you will have 100 amps. I'd say like 95% of the time. All right. So yeah. Just trying to get my questions up here. I gotta look on my screen. My phone's gone. Air exchanger cannot do the ductwork of a heat pump. The air exchanger, which we also do, they only use small duct, right? It's flexible. It's not enough. When you're talking about a heat pump, it's high volume, it's high velocity air that you're putting through. If you can see, like you can see a little bit in here on the ducted side, like that blower motor. I mean, this one here moves. So you got 1,500 cubic feet per minute, which is like, I mean, that's a lot of air. But that would do a whole, 2,000 square foot house. But even the mini splits, I mean, that one there is 550 cubic feet per minute. So it's a huge amount of air. The air exchangers, they're running like 100. They're like 100 cubic feet per minute. So they just don't have the capacity. You're talking, 5 to 10 times, depending on what you're looking for as far as airflow goes. So you can put the attic style in a basement ceiling. It has to be, if as long as it's open, right? Because you can't conceal this really to a degree, right? You have at least a foot between anything that we do and below. So you got to think about if you have beams, what way the joists go, because then you might be talking like bulkheads and things like that. And that big duct there at the back, that's an even bigger duct. So if it's going into like a mechanical room or something like that, maybe you can conceal this stuff somewhat. But yeah, it just depends. So yeah, so you can do like a multi-head compressor, right? So if you're looking for like multiple rooms, and you can actually do this to code. Like code, you can't, if you have units, you can't exchange between units. So like if you had ductwork and stuff like that, you wouldn't be able to do that unless they were completely separate entities. But you could have one compressor outside and then have multiple heads. But one thing that I will tell you is if that for you're saying that it's in the attic upstairs. Well, if they decide that they want to cool, which could be all the way into December if you're in the attic, it gets hot up there sometimes, right? And they want to cool their unit, and you want to heat your unit, it's not going to do either, right? You're either heating or you're cooling if you're on one compressor, right? You're not doing heating and cooling, right? So it's heat. You can have 18 and 20, right? But they both have to be heat. You can have 18 and 20 and cool, but they both have to be cool. You can't have one saying, I want 18 heat, and saying, I want 20 cool. It's not going to work. The machine just shuts off. Away you go. So really in tenant situations, you typically want them to have their own unit, because it can be a serious battle when it comes to. And outside of that, as I said before, I strongly recommend single zone compressors. You're going to spend a little bit more money at the beginning, but you're going to save more, break down less, last longer, work better at colder temperatures. They're diversified, so if one breaks down, the other one still works. You can heat and cool, right? It's just about every situation, except for, I think it's about, it's maybe like 8% more, 10% more maybe to go up typically. So It's really not that big of a deal. Air exchanger and heat pumps, no, you do not shut down. Air exchanger and heat pumps, totally separate, totally separate. Your air exchanger is actually taking fresh air from outside and bringing it across a coil, and it's bringing the cold air from outside, but it's also bypassing that warm air that's coming from inside. So there is an exchange to a degree. Some are better, especially the modern ones. Back in the day, it was just cold air, warm air out. But nonetheless, houses nowadays, if it's been built in the last 25 years, they're really tight. So you got to think about, every time I'm showering, every time I'm cooking, every time I'm doing anything with any hot, anytime I'm sweating or working out or whatever it is that you're doing, even sleeping for that matter, you're perspiring, you're showering, it's steaming, you're boiling hot water, you're making coffee. I mean, that's creating moisture inside your house, right? And not only that, but in the spring and the summer and the fall, we're pretty humid temperatures here. So when your house is so tight, there's just nothing coming in and out, right? That air stays inside. It's stale. You'll notice if you've got a bad exchange in your house, or if your house is too tight with no exchange, you'll notice sweat on the windows in the spring and the fall, right? That means that you've got dampness in your house, right? You've got stale air, and it's sitting around in your house. And the only reason that you would know it is in the spring and the summer when you see the sweat on the windows, right? You should really look into something, either exchanging the one that you currently have or adding one if you've not, especially if you've done renovations or anything like that and you've re-insulated attics, walls, anything like that. If you haven't added an air exchanger in your sweaty windows, that's what it is, 100%. So a semi-detached 13-year-old heated with electric baseboard. Ideal spot to have the unit is on the wall. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like pretty much we can do pretty much anything. So your traditional mini split setup is kind of like boom on the outside wall, out, and the drain goes down, right? But what we can also do, and you can kind of see what we've done over here on this other install, is you can actually have those line sets. So bring it over, actually. You can actually have those line sets come out the side of the unit, right? And then that could be reversed onto the other side of the unit. So we can do kind of a corner mount. The only thing that we can't do is we can't butt it right into the corner. So you're always going to have this little piece somewhere, 6-8 inches, because if I have it right up against the corner, then I'm never going to be able to service it, because sometimes I have to get into parts on this side of the machine. So I have to be able to get out so that I can get a screwdriver in at least in order to service the machine, right? But we can do just about anything. Another one that I see, because there are times in the semis where you kind of just have nowhere to go. I've seen it work good with one of these and a few of them, right? Like when you have that back wall in the dining room there or whatever, and you can shoot it right across the whole main floor, but you can't put it above the window or something like that. These can often come in quite handy for those scenarios. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions that I can answer for them? All right. If I've answered everybody's questions, that's awesome. Two rooms that are divided by a staircase going up to the second floor. It's hard. Sometimes it's just hard to imagine. But really, like I say, like no matter what, now that COVID actually, now that I'm going to say that COVID is like kind of like, got everybody talking. We can do like video site visits, right? Because I've done this so many times now, but it's hard to, like, everybody describes their house a little bit differently, so it's hard to imagine kind of like that. But if you were like uncomfortable with us coming to have a physical look at the house, we can also do that through video as well. We were doing that the first time through at COVID, and it worked out quite well. So yeah, so I mean, I guess that's it. I mean, I don't see any other questions up there. Thank you very much for attending. We are going to send a link out to everybody for the heat pump giveaway. We're going to be doing it on Friday after our last session, which is Thursday. And then we'll be announcing the winner on Monday once we've contacted them. But, if you know anybody that's thinking about a heat pump, I mean, it's really, it's the one thing that I get in people's houses is it's just hard to get that message across and kind of go through all the different options. The big thing is that no matter what, a heat pump is a big investment, right? It's very expensive. The idea of this is that you're going to at least sometimes try and return on your investment, if not return your investment. Now, you can go overboard and do way too much, but that's up to you. Maybe it's mostly about comfort and less about savings. But really, at the end of the day, these things are awesome. I highly recommend them. Try them out. We really stand behind our stuff. It doesn't matter whether it's LG or Fujitsu. We want to make you happy. We want it to be a good heat pump experience, because the more people who buy heat pumps, the more word spreads. And it seems to be spreading pretty good so far. You just won't be disappointed. You just don't want to overbuy, because you don't want to be overpromised things that can't be delivered. We won't do that. We'll tell you where the value is, and then we'll tell you where we can go. We always want to go all the way, but we also want to do it responsibly and let hey, you could do it with just this. And then you can expand on these systems too. You don't have to do it all at once, right? You don't have to come off of oil in a hot water baseboard scenario. You could do the heat pumps now, and in 5 or 10 years, do the service upgrade. Often with the ducted thing, if you're going to kind of go into ducted, you kind of got to do the whole shebang all at once. But anyways, well, thank you very much for attending. 1,000 square foot. Oh, okay, I didn't say that. So, square footage for a heat pump, I mean, it depends on the brand, right? So, you're buying the good ones, right? And you're going to get 600 to 800 square feet out of most of them. The Fujitsu, we say 800 to 1,000 out of a 12,000, because this actually does 16,000 BTUs on the 12. But typically 600 to 800 square feet for a 12, 800 to 1,000 for a 15, 1,000 plus for an 18. It's a little bit different with the Fujitsu. You do the 12 for 1,000, the 15 for over 1,000, and then anything above that. Really, at the end of the day, you should be looking at 2 heat pumps, because they just, they can go so far. But once you get out beyond a certain point, these things will always go into a defrost cycle, right? So a heat pump, I didn't really talk about that. Heat pump, as that is collecting the heat outside, that coil outside is actually getting colder. It's colder than the temperature of the air, which is kind of it's kind of like the same thing as air conditioning in the summertime. But what happens is that when that water from the moisture in our air, which exists down even in cold temperatures, combines and goes through and condenses on the coil, well, guess what? When it's cold, it's going to freeze. And you'll get this frost buildup on the outside. Every heat pump does it. Doesn't matter what it is. You get a frost buildup. It's called, and then what happens is that the machine will actually go into a defrost cycle. This head shuts down, right? It'll blow a little bit of cool air down the wall while it's heating the outside unit, right, where the compressor is. And that's actually heating up. So you could walk past one of these. This time of year seems to be the worst, when it's kind of like still cool, but very damp. You see all kinds of water dumping out of the bottom of this thing. You say, Jesus, what's going on? Well, I mean, it's supposed to do that, right? Really. We get calls every year. My machine is leaking. My machine is leaking. Well, that's part of it. It's going to happen. right? But when it goes into that defrost cycle and that head shuts down, there's no heat being produced at that time. Zero. So the colder the day, the faster that temperature is going to drop in the house. And if you're trying to do 1,800 square feet, right, and that goes off for 5 to 7 minutes, when it comes back on, it's working here. It's not working out there. It takes time to get back all the way out, right? It takes time to build all that heat back up again. So that's when you should really be adding another unit. So you're kind of splitting the power between the two and not trying to cover too much space with one. So a hot tub, electric heat, if you have the 200 amps, a hot tub and electric heat usually is pretty good unless your house is going to be probably over 2,500 to 33,000 square feet. Once you start getting to that size and you have electric heat already and you're doing your whole house with heat pumps, you're pretty much there, right? So you have to be careful. But the average house you can, where you have a couple heat pumps or a ducted system with a backup and a hot tub, probably not be able to heat a swimming pool at the same time, right? It would kind of be like one or the other. But then you got to think, now I've got my heat pump, right? I got my hot tub, and now I want an electric car. Nope. Now you're talking 400 amps, right? And 400 amps is major, right? 400 amps is like $6,000 to $8,000 to go from 200 to 400. It's huge. So you really do have to be careful about that, because you don't want to go and buy a hot tub and have your heat pumps already installed and then go buy your electric car and go, shit, I gotta get an $8,000 upgrade. That would be a painful day. That's for sure. All right, well, I'm going to sign off. I'm doing another one on Thursday. If anybody knows, is anybody interested, please send them out. Thank you for attending. I really enjoyed it. It is a lot of fun. Okay. So average cost savings over oil furnace powered electric baseboard. So electric baseboard, electric furnace, electric boiler, the most expensive forms of heating out there. You can't beat them. They're 250% higher than what you would say a heat pump or oil would be right now. But another big question I get is, how much is a heat pump going to save me over oil? It was actually funny. I had a conversation with the guy from Nova Scotia Power today who's really digging deep into the numbers. And he was like, oh, I found the number. I found the number of what, your average heat pump versus the oil. And I said, I'll tell you what that number is. I actually knew it. It's 70 cents a liter, right? This guy spent a long time and a lot of money finding out that it's right about 70 cents a liter. So if your oil is 70 cents a liter, which is probably about what you're paying right now, is break even with a heat pump. You're not going to save money. Your oil will go away and you won't buy any more oil, right? But it's not going to actually save you any dollars, right? But if oil is $1 a liter, this save you 30 cents on every dollar, right? So if you're spending $3,000 a year in oil at $1 a liter, this will save you, almost $1,000 a year, right? I don't expect oil to remain at 70 cents a liter, but can I claim that it's going to save you today over what the price is? I can't. It's just really, it's right in that number. So 200 amps, no electric car, electric baseboard. House has to be probably under 3,000 square feet, 2 heat pumps, or a ducted with backup and a hot tub. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do that in 200 amps. I mean, no, I'm not going to write a guarantee, but I've been in 20,000 houses over the last 8 years, so I've seen a lot. So you're right up, but you're right at the top. That's it. You're done, right? Once you have that hot tub 60 amps on its own in most cases. You might get a 40 amp hot tub, but 40 or 60 amps is almost always, right? All right. I'm actually going to sign off for real this time. Thank you very much. My throat's getting a little bit dry. Stay safe out there. And again, if you wanted to do any video appointments, we can do that. Absolutely. I am going to, what I'm going to do is I've actually done, this is like my 5th now, I think. I'm going to post them all. Each one can sometimes touch on a little bit different topic as well, but I'm going to post them all. I just haven't done it yet. But yes, you will see on our channel. So if you subscribe to our channel, you can see that. So thank you very much for attending, and hopefully we'll see you out for a heat pump, and have a great Christmas and everything. Thank you.